Hi guys, okay, it's Blackie and we're back with the first burn of the wood stove. Now, here's my wood stove. I've made some modifications from it since I first got it. Just looking it over real good and trying to come up with what I thought would be the most efficient. So, let me bring the camera facing down. I'm going to show you the modifications I've done to this. Okay, first off, sides fold down like that. Okay, this is an addition that I added. This is a dampener, and for those that don't know what a dampener is, it's a blocker on the inside. So that whenever this is straight up and down, this key right here is straight up and down, which for you old guys, it looks like a ham can key, don't it? But we're old, we remember those days. Straight through. As you close it, it closes it off. Okay, this is a way to increase the burn time of your fuel in here because you're limiting how fast the exhaust can get out of it. Here on the front, you have the adjustment for how much air getting in. So between these two, you regulate it down to get it to be hotter, produce more heat, and at the same time, if it starts flaring up and getting too hot, you can turn this down and close that up to kind of smother the flames down and spread out that heat so it doesn't overheat. Okay? Next, on the back of it you have the insert that slid in. This is stainless steel and it just slid into position. I didn't like the fact that it just slid into position. That sounds like a recipe for disaster to me, because as this gets hot, everything expands. If there's a little bit of breeze or whatever, and even though I'm going to rig up guy lines to my smokestack, I wanted to make sure that it wouldn't just walk its way out in the middle of the night and go skunk, and you'd have a hot pipe leaning up against the side of the tent, and you'd have this thing without anything on it. So what I did was I went down to the welding shop and had them tack weld it in several places. So now this is an integral part of the stove. I also, as you can see around these edges right here, I went and got me some fireplace caulking, and I applied caulking all the way around these edges here to help seal it up. Now, this section here, this round plate, this was designed in China to be a wood stove / barbecue grill. Okay? And in fact, when you read the little pamphlet that comes with it, they talk about this being used for using it as a barbecue grill, and this part coming out to be able to utilize it. So what this was for is you could take this plate out and set a big pot directly on top of the flames and have the pot seal it up. I am not going to be using this as a cook stove inside the tent. If anything, I'm going to set something on top to warm up, but I'm not going to be putting a big old pot on, etc. I have a fire outside if I want to really cook. This is going to be for a heater inside the stove. And I didn't like the fact that this is thin and therefore would be easy to leak around all the way around. So what I did was I had the welding shop tack weld it, bop, 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 in place for me. And I also sealed up the hole. I put a penny in there to seal up that hole where that hook goes to. I want to make this as airtight as possible. Now, in the design of it, you have this upper box, and then you have the main firebox down here. Along the inside of here is a series of air holes. And when you look on the bottom of this, you see these cutouts. There's actually an air intake here, here, and along the back wall. It's a double wall construction all the way around. That allows fresh air to flow from the bottom up through the sides, keeping the sides a little bit cooler, actually, because of airflow, and then keeping that oxygen flowing in up here to help combust the gases. Years ago they called it a secondary combustion chamber, but the idea being that as that heat rises up and comes through there and the gases get trapped up here in this top, the non-burn gases, it's adding oxygen to make sure you get a better burn up in here. But as you can see with this plate out, the idea was you could lay shish kebabs or something across here, or drop in a barbecue grill and actually barbecue over this. I'm not going to be doing any of that, so I just want it sealed up. Now I could have sealed it up here with the caulking, but I decided against that because this is such a large chamber that ash is going to get up here, and I want to be able to turn this thing over and dump the ash out. Okay. Now, you have a relatively small combustion door here, a place I can put wood in. The chamber inside is almost the same height as the top of this, but it does drop down about 1.5 inches, about 1 inch to the bottom. So you can go in and drop down. But the biggest piece of anything that you're going to be able to put in there is the size of a section of pipe, about that big around. That will just fit in that door, as you can see. It gives you a little bit, but that's about the size of the big hunks of firewood that I want to use. Now for a long burn, see, this is welded in place, and a pleasant surprise I got when I went to have them welded this is powder coated. This is not painted. I thought it was paint, but when they went to put power to it, tried art, they figured out this was heavy ceramic powder coating. So that should give me some good durability. Alright, so this grate right here has air holes in it for air to come in the bottom, regulated by this, come up through the combustion chamber, and then come up into the secondary chamber above it. So the way I would want to load this up for long duration burn is take a pretty good sized piece of dry white oak, put inside, go to that side, put another piece of dry white oak, come into this side, and have an 1 inch or 2 gap between them to put smaller stuff in till I got these 2 big ones going. Once that's doing, they're feeding off of each other, and then I could just add in a little bit in the middle until these finally are combusted. Then I'll rake them to one side and put a big log on the other side and keep adding to it. I want somewhere between a 45-minute to an hour burn time is what I'm hoping I can get out of this if I have the right kind of wood. So, now we come to the very first burn. Now, why do you want to burn this at home for the very first time? Because anytime you're testing out new gear, always do it at home. Don't do it out there in the middle of the wild. That would be a very bad time to find out you got a serious problem. So I'm going to fire this thing up. I'm going to put wood into it, get it going, get it burning. Oh, and one other little modification I did. I ordered extra pipe. Turn that up now. Hang on. Almost a little bit more, Blackie. There we go. I ordered extra pipe. It came with only about, that much pipe, about 2.5, 3 feet above it, which is fine for sitting on the patio in Beijing. But I went ahead and ordered so that with the additional of 4 additional sections of this, now I've got like 6 feet or so of pipe. Actually, probably about 6.5 feet of pipe. On this top one, I wanted to put a spark arrestor. So I made my own. Now, what is that? You southern fishermen, you know what a cricket cage is? I had a couple of old, wore out, where it's got the plastic end cap on it, one of them short cricket cages that plastic could give up the ghost, and it was cracking like crazy. So I just popped the bottom and top off, and there's that nice mesh wire, and it would perfectly slide on to this with friction. You got to get it bear down to make it slide down. And then I simply took a pair of pliers and kinked over the top. Now what this is going to do is, as the spark flies up, it's going to hit this mesh and trap it for that split second before it comes out. Anything tinier than that, as soon as it gets out in the air, it'll go out. But if it's an actual big cinder being carried along, this will catch it. And that will keep things from raining down the top of my tent or starting a fire out here around me. Now let's talk a little bit about safety with this. When you're going to set up, excuse me, let me move you in because you're in the sunlight. There you go, sorry. When you go to set this up, you want to make sure, remember that Widowmakers? Make sure there's nothing straight up above you. You don't want a great big oak tree with a lot of dead leaves hanging there and this thing blowing heat and sparks up in them leaves. Murphy's Law. So you're going to be using a ridge line between 2 trees, but just make sure that this stove isn't directly underneath a bunch of dry leaves. Okay? Smart, common sense. Also, if the prevailing wind is coming from that direction, this direction, I want my stove jack on this side so it blows the smoke and the sparks away from the tent. Okay? Don't put it where it's blowing it over the top of the tent. that doesn't help out any, because again, if there was anything made it through this, it's going to drop down on top of the tent, and you're trying to prevent that. One of the reasons they like straight piece of pipe across the edge like that is that the wind coming from any direction blows across top of it and causes draft. You can put an elbow up there, but then you need to steer that elbow so the dominant wind is coming from behind it or going across the edge of it to cause a draft. Otherwise, it doesn't pull very well. Heat's rising up it, but you want it to kind of get on out of there. See what I'm saying? Now I'm going to get this going, and then once I get it going, I'll turn the camera back on. And then once it's going good, I'm going to add green wet stuff to it because I want to make a lot of smoke. I want to see if it's leaking anywhere. Smoke will be obvious before I get it inside the tent, because I don't think carbon monoxide is going to be a factor inside that tent, because it's set up, sealed the ground, zipped up tight, etc. I think there's enough airflow, and I intend to take one of these sections of pipe and put it underneath the wall like that, so that this is underneath the stove. So I'm bringing fresh air straight out to go straight up into those air vents. And so that would be the idea of making sure that the fireplace has got a direct line of fresh air, so it would draw air in and go straight up and keep any kind of accumulation from happening inside the tent. You always want to be mindful of that. And once I get it set up and I do the actual in the tent test out, and I'll probably do that tomorrow morning because it's supposed to be 19 degrees, then we'll see about it, because there's a trick we use with a candle, where we would light a candle, let it go for a minute, and just put it out, and then you want to see where the smoke goes. If the smoke is going toward the stove, that's what you want to see. You may have to open up a zipper just a little bit to get proper vent, but you always want a constant, slight little airflow flowing toward the stove. That keeps any kind of gases from building up in there and keeps you safe. Okay, let me get it fired up and I'll turn you back on. Okay. There's it with the fire starter waxes, fire starter things getting it going. All kinds of sticks. Now I'm leaving the door cracked initially to get going good. Now I'm seeing smoke right up here off that top. That's just, I think from the heat and the paint and all we're going to see. But thus far, thus good. Everything's sitting wide open on the dampener, and the vent is wide open. I'm getting a lot of smoke around this top. I hope that burns off. We shall see. Okay, it was smoking along the top, right up here. That has now burned off. It has quit smoking. Now it's gone to smoking here around the door. I'm hoping that wasn't smoking until I did the reload. After you did the initial load and your bulk small stuff is burned down, now you're going into bigger wood. I opened the door and I reloaded, and so it started smoking along here, but this is getting good and hot now. We shall see how this is going, but this up here has quit, which is good to me. The pipe's taking on a nice golden color, so we got good clean burn coming out. I've turned my dampener down just a little bit, and I have left my air full power trying to get the warmth up in this, but so far so good. Bumping this doesn't seem to make it suddenly go to smoking or anything, and I can live with them little bitty wisps. That's okay. I just don't want it like this, trying to burn that tent and it's smoking like crazy. That's the reason we do a first burn, to burn off any oils or whatever and find out what's going on. Okay, see how now that pipe's turning blue? That's too hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dampener, and I'm going to push my dampener just a little bit, and I'm going to take my air and cut my air down just a little. And that should drop the airflow down. Keep the heat, but slow it down. Now I'm going to move this. This is in the wrong place, and this is just my old age and ignorance. That dampener needs to be moved up like 2 or 3 sections higher. instead of being right there, it's blocking, because if I turn it off too much, I go smoking around my door because it can't get out. You need it further up the pipe so that there's still a draw going up instead of just blocking it off. But see how that pipe's getting blue right there where it's getting hot. But this thing's generating a good deal of heat now. With the glove on, I can lift that little hot knob. Always open the door and don't throw the door open. See? Nice, good, hot bed going in there. Push 2, close. So far, so good. Now, it does concern me a little bit. Like I said, the smoke coming off here is gone now, but I am getting quite a bit around here and around the sides. But that's just it, you know, smoking first burn. And she got to burning really hard there. So now I'm going to open my dampener back up just a little and leave the air limited down a little bit and let it keep burning. But it's doing a good job. You might be able to see in the little window in there. But I may have to repack this door seal. There's a fiberglass seal all the way around. I may have to repack it to make sure it fits this groove a little bit better. We shall see. Okay, here we are at the smoke ring. Seems to be doing okay. And that's so far so good. No melting, no nothing. Okay, so far we're looking good. Now the little plug I put in the very center top with that hole where you lift the plate out, it fell out. So I'm going to have to replace that with something a little more robust. Probably a nut and bolt or a piece of copper brad. Because you do get a little bit of smoke coming out that hole, and you do get a little bit of flames lick out of it. I don't like that. And I can just simply put my metal kettle on top of it the whole time, but I don't like the fact that I've got a place that exhaust can come out all the time. And so that's one of the things that I'm trying to avoid. Now it's burning pretty well right now. As you can see, I don't know if you can see, I ain't got it on you, but found a few more sticks into it. This burn is to make sure of the smoke hole up there, and make sure that it's going to burn well and not cause us problems. So far so good. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it does fit in here really well. Now of course my hammock could be going right down the middle of this, and if I was going to be using this stove, I'd want to pull my hammock and put it on that end away from it, and then just hang it up when I'm ready to go to bed. I probably would turn the stove sideways so the opening was going that way toward the door instead of like I got right now, but we shall see. All in all, it's working good. Yep, I know it's dark. We're inside my tent, and the little wood stove is going. It is 35 degrees outside, and in this tent right now, it is 71, according to my little thermometer over here. And that's just with a handful of sticks. This little stove, I think, is about the perfect size for this little wall tent, because it warms up quickly and it's got about the right run rate. And I've got the top, I think you can see it unzipped on both ends right there, and I've got air coming in at the bottom to make sure I got a positive airflow so I don't get any carbon monoxide built up in here, which the stove's not leaking. As you can see, I put the kettle up on top of it and it's boiling water, and I'll come up with a little plate or something I can sit over that hole to plug it up, because I don't want any gases leaking out in here. But all in all, yeah, thumbs up. We're good to go. So guys, it looks like we're all cleared for an overnighter. This is not getting hot. This material is resistant to the heat, and so it touching that pipe is not automatically causing it to melt, which I was concerned about. Be honest, you just never know. Had this failed, I was going to cut this out a much bigger opening and go get me some fiberglass like you see for Bondo and that type of stuff, and make another ring to go on it. There was a fiberglass fire ring for this, or just order one that goes into a tent, either way. But I'd improve it, but this seems to be working okay. So we don't have severe leakage. We are smoke minimum. I can control and regulate it, and it's doing well. So now I feel confident enough to try an overnighter. So the next time you see the hot tent series, we will be going and setting it up and doing an overnighter, and that'll be probably coming this week. Till next time, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe before you go. I'd really appreciate it. And Happy New Year if I haven't said it before. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.